Hello, good evening, neighbors and friends. Good evening, neighbors and friends, brothers and sisters. Welcome again. Another evening joining you at 7 p.m. My name is Faisal Hassan. I'm your member provincial parliament for York Southwestern. Before I begin, I wish to acknowledge at this time the land that we know as York Southwestern is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse nations, many diverse First Nations, Inuits, and Métis people. And folks who are joining, welcome. Those who are joining Instagram, welcome. And also my page, Faisal Hassan NDP, welcome. And also Twitter and YouTube and also LinkedIn, that we are trying to reach as much platforms as we can reach to you, and to also bring your coffee, bring your tea, and any beverages you like, and let us hear your concerns. This week was a busy week. It was also a constituency week here in our community, and also it was a lot of activities happening in the community. Of course, we have celebrated the National Indigenous Veterans Day and Veterans Day as well yesterday. We have celebrated all together, and few Canadians are aware of the contributions of the First Nations, Inuits, and Métis to Canada's long military history. This is why the recognition of First Indigenous Veterans Day is so important. The hard work and sacrifices of these heroes have been instrumental in maintaining our freedoms, and we should all know their stories. I encourage everyone in our community to visit the Veterans Affairs Canada website to read these stories and learn about the rich history of the Indigenous people in Canada's military service to our nation, and also to many veterans in our community that have also died for our freedoms. And also I want to first welcome folks who are just joining our Facebook. Hello, Ivan and Frank and Faiza, Abdurrashid, and folks who are joining us also Instagram, Anthony and Halwa. Welcome, and others as well joining us other platforms and Twitter, and also Instagram and YouTube and LinkedIn. And if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube, please subscribe it. And so you can get also updates, videos, also of what's happening at the legislature when I participate in debates and or a question period as well. Hinda, also welcome. And of course, yesterday, folks, was a busy day, and Frank, welcome, and good evening to you. Frank says, good evening, brother Faisal Hassan. Welcome, and welcome each and every one of you folks who are joining, and Linda, welcome, and welcome all. Well, thank you for joining me, brothers and sisters, neighbors, friends. It has been said that freedom is not free. On the Remembrance Day yesterday, our nation gathered to acknowledge the heavy cost paid by our military veterans. In the years gone by, some have paid the ultimate price and given their lives to the cause of freedom. Others return bearing scars, both physical and emotional, that require a lifetime of healing. We can never forget this extraordinary sacrifice, and should do more to acknowledge and support our veterans outside of just this one day. Well, yesterday I was honored to represent you and lay a wreath at York Cenotaph as your member provincial parliament for York Southwestern. It was a moment of sober and reflection and deep appreciation. As a proud member of the Royal Canadian Legion Mount Dennis branch, I recognize the long history of the military service in our community. Just steps away from Cenotaph stands the iconic York Memorial Collegiate Institute, built in 1929 by the Township of York. This historical landmark is meant to honor the memory of young people killed in World War I and the sacrifices made in defense of our democracy. Though the building sits empty after the devastating fire of 2019, its mere presence is a reminder of a long history of sacrifice and amazing resilience shown by the men and women of Canada's armed forces. The stories of fortitude and fervor displayed by Canada's military are truly inspiring. I encourage everyone to take some time to read about the inspiring and diverse contributions of Canada's veterans. If you are able, consider a donation to the Royal Canadian Legion. You can also reach out to the Mount Dennis Legion at Eglinton and Western Road with a message of appreciation, or to learn more about how you can assist them directly, lest we forget the work of supporting Canada's veterans must continue beyond this special day. Well, folks, those who are joining us on Instagram, my colleague and friend Andrea Barrett, she's our Ontario NDP's candidate for Brampton South. Hello, and thank you for joining. And please, if you live in Brampton South, get involved and support our candidate. She's fantastic, candidate, and has deep roots in Brampton. And get involved and support her. Okay. Well, thank you very much. And those of you who are just joining from Facebook, Hussein Ali says, Mr. Hassan, what do you think of the Ford government's change to the high school curriculum by removing the applied and academic streaming? Well, I think that's a very good question. Welcome, Matthew, as well, Instagram. Well, I think the communities have been concerned about in many years, and the grassroots and parents have been concerned about streaming their children. And we have been advocating for years before I was also elected that kids every child should have an opportunity to master, readings and writings early, and also having the opportunity of also not being streamed, but able to succeed in high school. And if I could give you examples of a Black in the Toronto Business School, about I think I don't have the statistics on my head at the moment, but it has been known that we need to make sure that our kids are succeeding in schools, and that we have to support them and remove the systemic discriminations that have been experienced many BIPOC communities in our public education. And that's why we need to make sure that also we write new curriculums. And we have been advocating, the NDP has been advocating, we have been there to make sure that we have also working with teachers and working with parents to make sure the curriculum reflects the history of all people of Canada, including the First Nations, and also immigrants, also the Black communities from the Caribbean and Africa, so that kids also know and feel about their contributions, and that they also are motivated to learn more. And I do believe, making sure that giving every child an opportunity to succeed means that they're learning in schools, not being discriminated through, those kinds of systemic barriers that have existed. So I think we have been advocating, and I have no problem working with any political party, getting things done for the historical problems with our education. But first and foremost, what Ford needs to do is to invest money in public education. As you know, he has cut education. This year alone, 500 million. And when you cut education, when you fire teachers, that won't help our public education. That is eroding our public education. We need to invest our public education, and we need to invest it not to cut, as he has been doing since he has been elected. We need to make sure that our education are supported financially, and that we are working with teachers parents and students to make sure that they succeed. And our young people also need life experiences as well to learn about what's going on outside of classrooms, so that we can give them also work experiences when they go to colleges and universities. So that's why I put as the official opposition's youth opportunities critic. I have put a motion in February 28, 2019, and that was an NDP motion to making sure that our young people have internships, placements, and co-ops when they are in universities and colleges, so we provide them the experience necessary for them to gain while they're in school, so that they're not asked when they graduate, you don't have an experience, or where is your experience? So we provide them that experience early on, because work and school are inseparable, they go hand in hand, and we need to make sure that the government is there to support our education, from grade 1 to grade 12 and all the way to colleges and universities. That's why I think what he is doing, Ahmed Hussein, is that he's cutting education budget this year alone, half a billion. That's a lot of money. We need to hire more teachers. We need to also cap classes to 15. We need to tackle and also repair many schools that are old. We need investments, and we need it now. And definitely next year will be an election, and we would make sure that the NDP government will be there to invest for our public education. Well, thank you. I hope I answered your question. And my colleague, Andrea Barrett, candidate, Ontario NDP candidate from Brampton South, is saying, folks, to you, good evening. And to me also, good evening, Faisal Hassan. Well, good evening, and thank you for doing a fantastic job in Brampton South. And folks, if you live in Brampton, please get involved and support Andrea Barrett. She's an excellent candidate, and she will be an excellent addition to our Black Caucus. Okay, well, thank you. And welcome, meet me at the crossroads. Ifrah, welcome, and says hello. Yes, so agreed. Well, thank you. Meet me at the crossroads. Appreciate it for the wonderful job you're doing in the community, and also providing our young people, go back to school, backpacks, and supporting families who are in need. And I thank you for your volunteerism in our community. And thank you also for joining this evening as well. Thank you. Also, Brandon is joining us as well. Welcome, Brandon. Brandon, I will take your question quickly, but why don't I take just now? Brandon says, since the COVID-19 cases are going up again, do you think that the government of Ontario will put the province of Ontario back into lockdown? Well, Brandon, we have passed that stage of where we are going to be locked down, and I don't think that's not a good idea at all. We should be moving forward, and I think things are encouraging, to be honest with you, and definitely we need to do extra miles to reach people who haven't gotten their vaccinations, and we need them to get their vaccinations, because so that we could actually vaccinate as much people as we can, and that way will also give us following the social distancing and so forth, and hopefully we'll be able to come together this through. Okay, and I don't think it's a good idea at all. Our businesses have already struggled, suffering, and this government hasn't been supporting them that way. We know many of them has not been provided a direct support, and I've talked about again and again, those are the dry cleaners. They're also taxi drivers, and many folks who are small businesses are struggling, and this is the time to support them, and not just to worried about what will happen, just simply looking after the big box stores rather than the small businesses in our community. So that now is the time to support them, Brandon. And I think people are doing a fantastic job, and I thank them, each and every one of you. I know our community have lined up huge lineups to get the vaccinations. It took us almost 7 months to get a testing center in our community, and it took so much advocacy on our behalf to get that done. And also now people have done their best. I know we've lost many members of our community, but I think we are now moving forward, and I hope we're getting together, coming out of this. We have to just be following the public guidelines, and hopefully soon we'll be out of this, Brandon. Well, thank you for joining me this evening, and thank you for your questions. The folks meet me at the crossroads says thank you. Well, welcome. Well, thank you very much. I do appreciate, folks. Those who have just joined, you're joining your Member Provincial Parliament, Faisal Hassan. Brothers and sisters, neighbors and friends, welcome. I meet you every Friday, as I said at the beginning of the pandemic. I will be accessible to you, to come to you, to your home. And I've been trying my best to reach as much platforms as I can. Now you can join me Instagrams, you can join me every Friday, YouTube, you can join me also LinkedIn, and you can also join me Twitter, and also my Facebook page. And if you haven't subscribed my YouTube, please do so that you can also watch what we have been fighting. Excuse me. What we have been fighting on your behalf since June 7th, 2018. So, folks, we have been also advocating the story of the optometrist. As you know, it has been a difficult time that our seniors, our young people, don't have access to eye care. And eye care is health care. And we've seen what's happening, how this government is playing games with the lives of our members of our community. It is time that this government, it is high time that this government comes back to the table and just does the right thing and makes it a deal with the optometrist, so that punishing citizens tells us this government is out of touch. You can't play games with the lives of people. We know that many members of our community have many health issues, such as diabetes. Some have, glucomas, and I know some of my family members could not get it detected, glaucoma, and now they are not able to see. And I know them. Their life is tough. It's very hard. But now we can prevent many cases like that. And the government is reckless. It is not responsible what they are doing. And by simply neglecting their responsibility, well, definitely, we're going to advocate strongly to make sure that the optometrist and the government come to the table and also continue to support. And the sad story is also that these members of our community cannot actually get optometrists, and they need them. Many of you have written to me about it. So we need this services to continue, and this cannot continue any longer. And we need to make sure that happens. So folks, if you are living the Conservative MPP ridings, please write to them. Tell them how this is important to you as well. Well, thank you. Well, Frank says here, joining us on Facebook page, I am thankful that I can go for eye tests through my optometrist. Well, that is the important, because eye care is healthcare, and healthcare is from head to toe. So just playing games with the lives of our seniors and our young people is not right, and we need to fix this and get with it. So we need to send strong message to the government, and we're going to hold them accountable to this. Okay, we can't wait until June. Many people cannot wait until June 2nd, because June 2nd is going to be an election. But we need to deal with this now and get with it. So definitely I'll be raising this again when I go back to the legislature. Well, folks, another issue also that also affects many members of our community is the PCR testers. An increasing number of residents have highlighted their serious concerns with the cost of PCR testers for travel. Here in Ontario, some individuals have paid as much as $200 $50 per family member. The cost of these tests exceeds those of many other countries around the world and are leaving many people confused and frustrated. People in York Southwestern are happy to adhere to public health guidelines for the safety of our community, but these excessive costs feel punitive and unfair, non injusto. So many of our friends and neighbors are under financial strain with the cost of food, housing, gas, and many other household essentials climbing through the roof. It is, it is placing an additional burden of people on people that they cannot afford. We've all heard stories of family members kept apart during the pandemic. Due to travel restrictions, many in our community are experiencing this issue firsthand. Grandparents are eagerly waiting to hold newborns for the first time. Relatives are looking to care for loved ones who are ill. After close to 2 years, the impact this absence is having on our mental health is real, and family unification must be a priority. As the border between Canada and the United States opens this week, more people are considering their travel options, only to encounter the financial burden of the PCR test requirements. Almost half of all lab tests performed in this province are done by private companies. And I am left wondering if the reason is this government's continued push to weaken our healthcare through more and more privatization of services. The lobbyist for Switch Health, the company contracted to provide Pearson Airport testing, is the pharma communications director for the PC party. Whatever the reason, the government should be stepping in to set reasonable per test prices. Last month, I wrote to the Minister of Health to take action on this issue and to have the cost of COVID by OHIB. Earlier this week, I have stood up at the legislature and touched on these concerns and the need for action from this government. Families have been through enough in this pandemic. The government could easily maintain the public health requirements for PCR testing and stop these privatization of our public health care. The approach of putting corporate interest like big box stores and private long-term care homes above all else had failed Ontarians repeatedly during this pandemic. Now it is failing families simply looking to reconnect with loved ones after months of pandemic restrictions. I will continue to advocate on this issue and advocate and insist that this government learn from its mistakes of the past and learns it, and also make sure that members of our community could have a cheaper or covering OHIP for these testers, so they don't have to pay a dime of it, because it's important that we look after every member of our community. So this is a crisis, folks, and I have talked about this, and we need to deal with this issue. And as soon as I go back next week, I'll be also raising these issues as well. For those of you who are joining us from Facebook page, Faisal Hassan NDP, welcome. Those who are joining us on Twitter, Faisal Hassan NDP, welcome. Those who are joining us Instagram, Faisal Hassan NDP, welcome. And those who are joining on LinkedIn and also YouTube, welcome as well. I know education, folks. I just touched a bit cats, and I think someone also asked me a question about education. And the government's recent fall economic statement was a huge disappointment to many, with roughly $500 million in cuts from the education funds promised in his 2021 budget earlier this year. In the March 24th, provincial budget, the government committed to spending 31.3 billion on schools for 21 to 2022 year. That funding commitment has now been reduced to 30.8 billion. As a result of this recent announcement, parents, educators, staff, and stakeholders all know that we cannot afford to cut corners on education and the learning, the recovery our schools and students are trying so hard to achieve. Well, thank you to the parents who have reached out with their opposition to the education cuts. I will continue to advocate for the resources our schools deserve in our community, and I'll continue to make sure that public schools are funded. And we need to invest more money in education. Cutting is not the solution, and we've seen this government has been cutting education, of cutting healthcare, and many other departments. And we need to make sure that we need an NDP government next year, come June 2nd. Well, folks, thank you for joining me. Just give me a minute. Well, thank you for joining me. I join you every Friday from 7 to 8 p.m. to hear any concerns or any issues you might have. And of course, also, you can also, if you missed it, you can also watch it after on YouTube or Facebook or other also platforms to also write to me. You don't have to wait Friday to connect with me. You can also email me. My email is fhassan-co@ndp.on.ca, or you can phone me, my constituency office number 416-243-7984. And also my office is located 1965 Western Road. That is north of Lawrence and close to the Shoppers Drug Mart, and in Western Road. Well, thank you. Also this week, I was honored to be invited to the official send-off of Canada's under 15 futsal World Cup team as they prepare to depart for Paraguay. And don't confuse with football to futsal. The different kind of football, and it's futsal. A World Cup is happening in Paraguay this year, and these dedicated athletes will be representing Canada on the world stage in the first competition of its kind ever. It is the biggest delegation since 1984, when Canada played in the Pan American Games in Brazil. I know they can all count on our support as they impact on this journey and make Canada proud. So that team was fantastic to also, we want them to win the cup and bring back here. And I'll be also sharing you updates about their progress and how they do it as our under 15 futsal World Cup team has going to depart to Paraguay. I think this coming week they're going to be departing there. And that is also quickly things that happen this week. Also, don't forget about young folks. Application for the second annual Youth Council for my office, MPP Faisal Hassan, Youth Council for York Southwestern, are now open. So this will provide an exciting opportunity for our young folks to highlight ways our community can be better and identify ways we can support young people across in our community of York Southwestern. If you are a young person between the ages of 16 and 24 and are interested in making an impact in your community, you can fill an application and also and then also send your application. And I know that the current MPP Faisal Hassan Youth Council are doing fantastic job. They are representing our young people in our community and also learning how the provincial government works there. And that is also fantastic. Well, folks who are just joining us, you're joining your member provincial parliament, Faisal Hassan, and I join you every Friday from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m., where we talk about the week's important issues, and also where I also share your comments with the members of the community, as well as also take some of your questions as well. And I've already taken some of your questions also already, the first half of our discussions here. And I know that also the issue of optometrist is a huge issue. And I've talked about it earlier. I've also asked questions with the Minister of Health, and also I rose at the legislature to table also petitions that many of you have delivered to our officers, and many seniors in our community have also raised concerns, and the appointments it has been passed, some of them for days and days now, and we need this to be dealt with immediately. We've seen also the members of the Ford caucus speaking up today, and that's good. We need more of them to also to speak about this issue and speak out, and because this is an important issue, and we don't want things we can prevent to actually take the sights or the eyes of members of our community, because eye care is health care, and we need this to be dealt with immediately. It's so important that this could be dealt with, and I'm going to go back next coming weeks and to raise these concerns. It's very important. I've talked about also PCR tests, which is also costing too much money to actually get tests, and this could be, we need to also deal with that immediately and provide a cover rather on OHIP on this. I've talked, folks, many times, again and again, about the auto insurance issue that our community has been facing for years, and it is because of our postal code. And I've talked about this at the legislature again and again. I have, put a motion there as well in the legislature highlighting this issue that we need to ban postal code discrimination when it comes to auto insurance. And we know that average our auto insurance is over 3,000. 3,000 a month is an average. Some folks are paying above average, and there are many of them. And we do not know why this is happening. And we need to solve it once and for all. And the solution is to actually paste auto insurance solely on your record, the car you drive, and also your driving record, period. Nothing else. And why this stories of simply being affected of our auto insurance because of our where we live, postal code shouldn't be part of the auto insurance. And I know that also I have held a town hall where I invited our official opposition's critic for auto insurance, and that is Kevin Yard, my friend and colleague from Brampton North. He's doing a fantastic job, and he was also he joined us here in our community and talked about the auto insurance issue. And this was an important town hall meeting. And he also mentioned some of these auto insurance companies are considering also credit history be part of the auto insurance decision making. And some of them these insurance companies are resisting that. They don't want to go that path. And there are, according to Kevin Yard, some good auto insurance companies, but there are others who are basically trying to take every dollar they can from our community, and also trying to continue these discriminatory what I call a community discrimination on the auto insurance based on postal code discrimination, and that has to come to an end. As you know, just give you a little background of that, and I've talked about this many times in our town hall meetings here, and that is, my colleagues who are also raising this issue at the legislature, because of also it affects also their constituents, and they have talked about it. Currently, Kevin Yard has been championing on these issues continuously, and I have worked with him on this, and others also have put bills. Tom Bukasevich from Humber River Black Creek brought a bill at the legislature, and also Rotan Singh from Brampton East also brought a bill. So do Kevin Yard, myself, Sarah Singh, Dolly Beckham, and others as well has put this forward. And also because we pay higher premiums for auto insurance, and this is not right, and we need to tackle this. And also the pandemic also exposed this kinds of high rates of auto insurance, because we knew that the last 18 or 19 months, our cars were parked on our driveways and our basements, and these cars were not driven. They were just sitting there because we are in a pandemic, and many of you have not gotten any breaks for auto insurance. Auto insurance is going up again. So now we know it's not based on anything. It's just a profit maximizations. And we need to tackle this. And definitely we need to raise this. We have been raising it. We need a solution to it. And the solution is to ban it, and just completely that we don't need auto insurance based on postal code discriminations. So I'll continue also to raise this issue when I go back at the legislature as well. And definitely, I will also update you as I send also literature about what I have been also advocating since I have been there, or at least this year, 2021. There have been many issues that I have been advocating on your behalf. So these are just the highlights of it. And also, I know that housing, we talked about again and again. And I've also said to you, also our housing plan is out, is already released. My leader have released them several months ago. And you can also read that. Just going Ontario NDP. Or just you could put any search engine and you could put Ontario NDP housing plan. And there you will have it. And this housing crisis, folks, has begun in 1990s when the Liberals, federal Liberals, that is, were governing in Ontario. And they were basically said that we have nothing to do with housing. And they said that it's the responsibility of provincial governments. They downloaded to provincial governments. In Ontario here at that time, Mike Harris was the premier. And then after Mike Harris, Ernie Eves, and also Dalton McGuinty and Kathleen Wynne, and now we have Doug Ford. But Dalton McGuinty, Ernie Eves, Kathleen Wynne, and Dalton McGuinty and Mike Harris, what did they do? They simply also downloaded it to the municipalities. And I've said again and again, our municipal representatives are doing their best. Our mayor, his worship, John Terry, has been trying his best in that regard, but they cannot tackle or deal with these downloading of responsibility of the provincial government on housing. That's why we need to look into supporting cooperatives. Those cooperatives that are already there, we don't want them to lose them. We need to make sure that they are supported continuously. And we need to make sure that they're also protected. And we need also to make sure that we build new co-ops and also create other options. And I like our housing plan because it gives every single person a different options. And also, we also, for the first time, we also have also proposed that equity loans for those who make less than 200,000 that will give you the 10% down payment so that you could also own your own place. And that too also requires for us to tackle or deal with, the speculators and flippers. We have also seen during the federal election, a liberal candidate in the West, I think was BC, flipping many houses. And that was also not a place to live, but a place to basically make money, and that creates also speculators to create problems and flippers and so forth and so on. And we need to also tackle that aspect of housing, while we propose also concrete ideas that can actually tackle the issue. Many people say also there's a problem of there's no supply. Well, the problem here is we need to tackle all angles of it. We need to make sure that people have options. If young person who's hardworking person or persons that want to own a place of their own, but they cannot save, the down payment. It takes them years and years and years and years to do it. Then giving them an equity loan where they can get from there, and they later on buy from the government that equity loans of 10%, then they will be able to afford the mortgage. They'll be able to pay back, and there we create an option for people to own their own home, and that's good. Also, we need also to provide support for those who are not able to pay a mortgage, and they are willing to rent. And we need to provide a couple of things for them. And one is, first and foremost, is we have to make sure we tackle the long waiting list for affordable housing. Toronto alone, there are over hundreds or more people are waiting for affordable housing. And that is unacceptable. We have to make sure those people have places they can live. And we need to create opportunities for them. For example, many members of our community have been concerned about the rise of the cost of rental. And we need to introduce rent control, that protects them, the tenants. Also, we have seen also other methods of these big landlords. When I talk about landlords, folks, I am not talking about the small mom and pop landlords that are struggling, that also have a mortgage. I'm talking about these huge landlords that are simply trying to create what they call above guidelines. They use every year to raise the rent, and they've been continuing to do that. And they haven't been really fixing these units for years and years. And we've seen also constant harassments that happens to tenants. Many of them have come to my office. I know the situation. It's getting worse because the tenants don't have that protection now. There's no rent control. We know that last year the rent was frozen, but come January, what's going to happen? And we're not still out of the pandemic. Many people are also struggling. They're struggling because they might not have a job, and they might not be eligible for EI, and they won't be able to afford it in a place. And going welfare, that's not even enough for a single person. They won't be able to afford. So we have to tackle the housing crisis, and we have the plan to do it. And we will be able to do it come June 2nd. An NDP government will put a priority and make sure that this neglect from the Liberals, then Conservatives, and now Conservatives has not done the right things and tackling the crisis of housing and issues of affordable housing as well. And it's very important that we tackle it and tackle it immediately. It's very important that we do. Also, this neglect, now we know that this is the first time since the 90s that the Liberals, for the first time, now appointed a minister for housing. My counterpart here, Honorable Ahmed Hussein. And we don't know what plans they have because we have requested many, many meetings in his office since I've been elected. We have not gotten that to explain how is he going to support communities like ours here in York Southwestern. I know that the federals have downloaded that issues into municipalities. And they downloaded rather the provincial governments, and the provincial governments have downloaded municipalities. Now, what solutions? I just wonder, what solutions are they going to bring? And we need to build more direct support. Of course, we need also to offer building more co-ops and also providing community members direct support for the rent. People who cannot able to do, and also dealing with people who are on the waiting list. There are hundreds of thousands only. It's only Toronto alone. We haven't talked about Bill region or Niagara or the north or the eastern part of or southern part of Ontario, or the west part. We haven't touched all of those. We are just talking about Toronto and our community. And this is also, we haven't heard from the new housing minister. I know that he has been recently appointed, but we need to make sure that what kind of a vision they have to support our community, and also dealing with supporting provincial governments as well, also a municipal government as well. And I'll be able to report you back, as I know that housing is a huge crisis in our community, and it has been. And I can testify, this has been, since I can remember, a crisis. I was a frontline worker in housing. I know that in many, many years, the housing crisis in this city has been there, and it hasn't been tackled. We have been just managing it through temporary residential, temporary shelters, or temporary housing here and there, to a waiting list, and this is not working, folks. That's why our housing plan makes sense, that we can give people also options to own on their own place. And another thing also we need to explore is to make sure that also we protect the co-ops that also exist in our community. That I know that most of the federal co-ops are fine, as I've been informed, but the others might be an issues, and definitely I'll be making sure that we support them, and we continue to make sure that these co-ops are there for another 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, and 100 years from now, so that we create options for affordable homes and affordable place to live, because not everybody can own their own property. And therefore, that's why in our community, 50% of our community members rent, and another 50% also own their own properties. So we need, though, if they're able, since they're paying rent, and many of them are able to have a mortgage, why don't we then provide them equity loans so they can put down the down payments, and putting down the down payments makes sense. Well, if you haven't read our plan, folks, you can check in Ontario NDP housing plan, and then you will have it. If you want to get a copy, hard copy, I'll be happy to give it to you, a copy, or you could drop by my constituency office, 1965 Western Road, and I'll be happy to provide you a copy of it. you know, and so forth. Well, folks, I will just take some of your comments. Welcome, folks, those who are joining Instagram. You are joining Faisal Hassan, NDP, and also those who are joining also YouTube. Welcome, and if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube, please do so. And those who are joining Instagram, welcome, and also Twitter as well. Well, quickly, Frank says it's good you mentioned the housing issue. The city exploring one-year temporary measures to house the homeless. The plan should be longer than a year, I think. Well, thank you very much. I think we need to work with the city, you know. Well, the city needs also support, definitely. I get that. We need to support the city to make sure that this crisis, which the federal liberals have created in the 90s, and also continued the BC, the Conservatives here, under the leadership of Mike Harris, Evan Eves, and Dalton McGuinty, the Liberals, and also Kathleen Wynne, have continued that crisis. They have simply downloaded it and said we have nothing to do with it. And we see the crisis now. Now, let's talk about this. You're right. They should be a permanent places for them. I agree with you. But this kind of managing temporarily have continued since 1999, and it hasn't helped. I remember when I was a frontline worker working with the homeless population in the city of Toronto, and I continued to do that. No one was listening to us. No one was helping people until Professor Robert Murdy's studies came out from York University, who was the leading expert in also housing studies. He has done a fantastic job. He connected to his colleagues from University of Toronto and Ryerson University, or former known as X University, that have done a fantastic job. I know I worked closely Robert Murdy, and I know him. He has highlighted that issue of housing in 1999 and before that. So this is Frank. This is not something new. This is the city has been doing this kinds of a patchwork, here and there. But we need a permanent solution to this crisis. We have to think about how we can solve it. Now we know some projects that happen in our community, they said it was affordable housing. But we know it's not affordable. So also when people talk about affordable housing, ask Frank, what does it mean? Does it mean you're going to pay 30% of your income? Does it mean you're going to pay 40% of your income? What does it mean? So that we understand first, so that the mistakes happen here in our community, especially on 22 John Street, never happens again in this city. So we need also folks to understand what that means when they talk about affordable housing. Because in my understanding, it creates a problem for us. We have lost our best farmers market, next to none in the city, and that's gone. Now we have this building, and people cannot afford. They cannot afford. It also created a problem that also other neighboring buildings also did the same things by raising the rent, simply following them. And that created a difficulty for our community. So we don't want, again, similar experiences, but we want to work with the city to make sure that the future developments that is happening in communities like ours, we need to work with the community. And I say also, the community should be consulted. They should be consulted. The community have also ideas of how they can work together with these things, but also we need to make sure that there is a plan, there is a policy to make sure we are building housing continuously that are affordable, and also we're giving people options to own their own places. And now we can't. But I think the city is exploring one-year temporary measure to house homeless. Why can't we make it permanently, Frank? Permanent places, and also provide that transitional aspect of it, where we can also bring also the medical support they might need, and also the job training aspect of that as well. and connect to also readiness for jobs as we transition that for a couple of years to make sure that if they are housed, if they need medications, then being supported there and continuously also provided the life skills, training, and also invest them in that. And from there, they will become a productive member of our community and they will be contributing fully. And that's why I believe we need to make this not just living it, the city of Toronto, running it alone. We need to work together, all three levels of government. And I'm glad that now the federal Liberals have corrected their mistakes by acknowledging it was a mistake to not get involved in the 90s in the housing, and now by appointing a housing councillor exactly addresses that. But what plans do they have? That's what I want to know. And what is their vision towards our city and in our community here in York Southwestern, and how the community can benefit programs the federal government is going to do. Are they going to, I will wait first, definitely, to make sure their plans we understand clearly. But also our plan, folks, is very clear. Our housing plan, Ontario NDP housing plan, if you haven't read it, please read it. It is available on our Ontario NDP website, or you can just search it, any engine, and write it, Ontario NDP housing plan. And if you want to get a physical copy, I'll be happy to provide it to you. Just write it to me, fhassan-co at ndp.on.ca. Well, Frank says here again, you're right about that. All three levels of government must work together to fix this housing crisis. It is a national disgrace. I agree with you. Absolutely. We must get it right. And Frank, we have the plan. We have the plan, we have the vision, and we are ready to deliver results for our community and across the province of Ontario. And we need to make sure right now, folks you talked about, they don't only need temporarily, they need a permanent place to call home. And our province should be working with the City of Toronto, making sure these folks are supported for the coming years, so that also we have also a plan to support them. Do they need a medical attention in terms of counseling? Do they need a therapy? What do they need? And also, can we also provide them those who are ready for training as well, until they stood up also on their feet, and also provide them the support they need until they could be independent of support. And that's the kind of vision we need to put our people first and support them rather than leaving them on the streets. Well, folks, those who are joining or who have joined this evening since 7 p.m., well, thank you. You join me every Friday from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. And since March of 2020, I have been joining you folks live on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and now also LinkedIn, and also Twitter, and I'll continue to do this, and I'll be able to also update you next week again as we go back to the legislature to report also the issues of the week there, and also hear from you, your concerns, and your issues as well. So if you also have any issues, any ideas, any suggestions you would like to share with me as your member of provincial parliament, I would like also to hear from you, and you can send it to me through my email, fhassan-co@ndp.on.ca. You can also call me at my constituency office, 416-243-7984. And folks, until then, I hope you'll be able also to share any ideas. You don't have to wait for me until I join you Fridays. you can actually contact my office if I could be any help, any assistance. Well, folks, thank you very much. My time is up. It's 8 o'clock now. I have been speaking to you until from 7 to 8 p.m. Well, folks, I will be also joining you again next week, the same time at 7 p.m. I'll be joining you on my Facebook page, Faisal Hassan NDP, and also Instagram, Faisal Hassan NDP, Twitter, Faisal Hassan NDP, and also LinkedIn, YouTube as well. Well, until then, folks, this is it for me, and have a wonderful evening. Until then, enjoy your weekend and enjoy the beautiful weather as well. Well, thank you then. Till then, goodbye.